I'm the ultimate skeptic. I'm with Socrates in trying always to remember and know that I know nothing. And one of the reasons for this is simply an acknowledgement of how limited our senses are. Our foundation of the scientific materialist worldview is empiricism, is the idea that knowledge can be derived from the senses, that the senses can provide veridical information about the world. In my view, the senses are just so incredibly limited, and ironically, science itself essentially confirms this. According to science, if you were to take the entire electromagnetic spectrum of all of the different wavelengths, things that go beyond colour and sound that we can seemingly perceive, or at least represent mentally somehow, we would only see 1/10 of a millionth of that electromagnetic spectrum with our senses. That's all we see, a thin slither of what actually happens. And if we were to compare ourselves with a blind cave salamander, we'd be pretty close on that spectrum, really. If at the most extreme end we have rocks, which seemingly can't experience anything at all and experience 0% of that electromagnetic spectrum, and then on the other end of the spectrum we have some hypothetical god being who can perceive all of the entirety of the electromagnetic spectrum, we are right down at this end next to the rock, almost as blind as a rock, really. I take experience as experience, but do not take it to tell me much about reality, and don't think that it's a sufficient basis to build a conceptual model of reality, and that to me is all the materialist and physicalist worldview is. It is a conceptual model, and a kind of crude one, just so crude and so reductionist that I wouldn't really go along with it. Instead, I make peace as being like the blind cave salamander, it's just like ants looking at the world and thinking that they can create an adequate conceptual model based on their senses. We're not really much better. I mean, okay, we are far, far more sophisticated, but in the grand scheme of things, just so limited. Our sense apparatus did not evolve to show us the truth of things. It didn't evolve to show us reality as it is. It evolved according to the economy of nature, only sufficient to allow us to survive and reproduce. Anything else is a bonus, but really I don't think there's much more than that. And so our capacity to see the world as it really is just so limited by the filters that process of evolution and natural selection has placed upon us. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of skepticism and knowing that we know nothing, and bathing in intellectual humility and uncertainty, and not being very confident about our assertions of how things are, because we just do not and cannot know.